Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Uplevel Your Life with Mindy. I'm your host, Mindy Duff, and I have a special guest with me here today. I'm going to be chatting with Marc Scheff about, boy, I don't even know. I mean, I think I know what we're going to talk about, but Marc has quite the background. So this could go anywhere, right?
It really could. It really could. I'll try to keep it focused and hopefully valuable, helpful, informative.
Well,
Thank
there
you
you
for
go.
having me, Mindy. This is nice to talk to you.
Absolutely. And let me tell you a little bit about Marc formally, and then I'm going to let Marc tell you about himself informally. So Marc Scheff is a visionary coach dedicated to guiding makers and change makers on a profound inner journey. With his expertise, individuals break through barriers, transcending self-limiting beliefs to unlock the full spectrum of their capabilities. Marc's transformative coaching goes beyond the visual arts. We'll talk about visual arts here in a little bit, resonating with a diverse array of clients, empowering them to architect their own narrative and flourish in their professional endeavors. And again, welcome to the show, Marc.
Thank you so much. That's well said.
Yeah. So I read, I mean, that's like your formal, bio. But I
Right.
always like to hear people explain in their own words, what do you really do? Like okay, that's what you like on paper do, but what do you really do? How do you see it?
Yeah. Um, I think the thing that I do and that I've always done is, and this is maybe too broad, but from from the moment from the moment I remember, even in high school, college, after college, I love to learn things. I love to learn new things. I love to especially learn about kind of like how people work, how creativity works, how the mind works. And obviously I've had careers in tech and art, and I like taking those skills. And what I like doing is I like learning those things and then helping other people take those tools and create, amazing things with them. So sometimes that creation is art, sometimes that creation is a relationship, sometimes that creation is business. Now that I'm really committed to my coaching as a full-time practice, and this has been a transformation, a COVID transformation, I can now take all of the many books and experiences and workshops and trainings and all these things that I've done and really apply it in a very deep way for people that I find. I mean, honestly, people ask me like, I'm not making art the way that I was before. That's just the truth. They say, oh, how do you feel about that? Are you like, and I said, yeah, it was definitely a conversation I had to have with myself, but this work is the most creative work I've done in my life.
Yeah. Oh, I could see that easily. So let's talk about, so you're coaching now, but let's talk a little bit about before, because we've kind of hinted around this visual arts bit. So what did you used to do? And I know you still, yeah, I mean, it's in your
Still
bio that
do.
you help people, even with, you do your own art and you help people with art, but let's talk about
Yeah.
that just for a little bit.
Yeah, well, I think it's kind of interesting the way that you asked it. Like, it's what I used to do. I mean, it is, and it's a thing that kind of gets in people's way, I think, when they talk about transformation, because there is, to move in a new direction, if you will, there is an aspect of kind of letting go of what you were doing. And I'll say more. I'll answer your question on creativity, but I just want to kind of note, like, there's almost like a grief that one might go through if they're changing careers or moving on from a relationship, or having kids. As you well know, the life we knew before kids is gone
It is gone.
forever. But art, yeah, no, I mean, I've always been interested in art. I've always made art. When I was in high school, I had this great art teacher, Mr. Buckley, who, I went to a small school. There weren't that many electives, and there was one year where we did not have a like a drawing painting elective, but he picked five of us, and said, talk to the administration if you guys want to do. It was a boys' school. If you guys want to do, art electives, they said that I could basically take extra time just for you guys. So, I was into it. But then when I went to college, there wasn't a lot. I mean, my parents were very supportive of kind of whatever I wanted to do, but my dad's a pediatrician and my mom was a nurse, and so there was a little bit of like, yeah, you should go and like try to get a job. So I studied computer science in school, because I thought, I'll get a job, I'll do some art on the side. Very quickly, when I got my first job, I was talking to all the designers, and we created, this was 1999, so I had a friend who literally would every day wake up and check to see all the new websites that had been made on the internet, because you could do that because there was like 4 of them. So this is early on, and all of us sort of creative minded folks at this company said we want to have a new position where we're really thinking about how to make the websites and the user experience. There's no such thing as user experience, that literally didn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
So this was the path that I took, and then I started taking art classes and kind of went, oh man, I really like this. And I started taking more art classes, and then I was taking so many art classes that I had a relationship fall apart, and my boss, who I have since thanked, offered to let me be a part of the next round of layoffs so that I could really focus on what I love. And I went through a whole, I mean, even the art side, I went to art school, I went back into tech and video games, because it's this winding path. I was in my 20s, and I was like, okay, well, what can I do? What can I do with this? I didn't really know, but I started to discover the world of illustration, where I spent a good number of years and taught for a little over a decade, I think 12 years, taught illustration and drawing. And even in that time, completely transformed and went into fine art, where I'm probably best known for my resin work. I'm probably best known for these. I should actually have one sitting here so I can like show you. But I have a I'm gonna knock everything over. You can hear everything falling off my desk. But this is one that's in progress. But you can see these paintings are like, there's a thickness to them, and this is not done, but it's going to be a self-portrait. And you can see, actually, it's kind of neat to see. You can see that this is an underlayer. I'll put more resin on. I'll draw on top. This is what I'm probably best known for in the art world.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I think it's relevant to mention your art background, because people might be listening going, okay, so he does art. Like, what the heck does that have to do with this coaching, and how can that help me? But it does. It all comes together, and I know that it does. Yeah. So, which leads me to my next question. Why do you think creativity is so important?
Good question. Really good question. I don't know if I would even say it's important. I would say that it's unavoidable.
Yeah.
It's the reason why you eat whatever you eat for breakfast, or dress the way that you dress, is that, you saw something and you tried it and you decide you liked it, or maybe that was the choice you had. But fundamentally, we're all creating everything in our lives. Now, I want to acknowledge, some of us have more choices than others. Some of us have more privilege than others. Some of us have less choices than others. That's not to say that everyone, I'm not one of these like, oh, just think, put it out in the universe and you'll have whatever you want. Sometimes the choices are limited, but we can be creative, I think, within those choices. I mean, I think you probably, like anybody else, have been faced with a choice where you don't really like either option. And sometimes we have to be creative about either making the best of one of the options, or making, sometimes I actually find, especially in creativity, that constraints on our choices can actually cause you to have more creativity. But I want to also acknowledge, like, the thing that I didn't say in that little history is that for the last 20 years, I've been in and around the coaching world. I was in a group that was doing a lot of coaching from like 2004 and on the West Coast. And then I've done a lot of workshops and a lot of books and personal growth. I've done coaching. I've had coaches. So that was always kind of in the background. And so, when an opportunity presented itself for me, COVID, to sort of reinvent myself, I got to take a good hard look and get really creative about, okay, so I listed all these different things that I do. And I didn't just do those things. I mean, I run an art gallery. I was an art director. I was a creative director, a founder. Like, I worked at kind of all the different levels. And what really made sense was the creativity piece and everything that I just said, but also working with people at these different levels. Because you might look and say, sort of jack of all trades, but at the same time, I've seen corporate, nonprofit, independent, freelance. Like, I've seen all these different things from a number of different angles, and you can hear it in my voice. Like, I'm so excited to work with people and to discover how they want to navigate best whichever world, it is that they're in.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And again, I'm going to bring it back to this creativity piece, which I think, I don't know, I run across so many people that think that they're not creative. Well, I'm not creative, or
Right, right.
I
I
can't
can't
paint a
draw.
picture,
Yeah.
I can't, I don't sing, I don't do whatever. And that's not true I mean, maybe it's true that, somebody listening cannot sit down and recreate the Mona Lisa, sure. But that doesn't mean that you're not creative. But I think that it's interesting because as I was kind of looking over, your history and everything and preparing for this podcast, I'm actually taking a course right now, and it's all about brain and brain development and how that relates to children and whatever. It's a whole thing. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
I just finished this chapter on creativity and watched this wonderful TED talk by a man that would be really great if I remembered his name. I don't. But it was all about how essentially schools are kind of designed to smush creativity. And I don't think that, and I'm a teacher, I've been a teacher, teachers are great. I don't think any teacher out there is heading to work every day going, all right, I'm going to smush the crap out of these kids' creativity. It's just a byproduct of what happens just due to the structure of that. And then we end up with adults that think that they're not creative. And even though, like you say, you are creating every day when you choose what you're going to wear, et cetera, but you have so much more creativity that's untapped because you just haven't been really using it. And that's, again, not to say that everybody has to go out and paint a picture. But that's just, like you were mentioning, solving problems and having to look at it from a different way.
Yeah.
So I really think that, I don't know. I just think
Well,
it's a
you
thing.
can probably, you mentioned, right, like I have two kids, you've got kids. How creative, how much more creative are you now as a parent, a decade plus into parenting?
Yeah, as compared to just starting out, you mean?
Yeah. You've
Yeah,
had a lot of practice, right?
yeah. Yeah, you have to get creative sometimes. You don't have a
You
choice
absolutely have
but
to.
to be creative.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of the things, I think about the work that I've done as a coach, but also, as someone who's been coached by many different, some really wonderful people. So much of it comes back to my parenting. I think that this work that I do on myself and that my clients do on themselves, so much of it just comes back to their families, their loved ones, their kids. The things that I hear from people in my course, my program, are oftentimes, yes, some of them are making art or writing or making music or doing these different things. Most of the stories I hear about is about the relationships in their lives and how they're changing.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And again, like it's already there. It's
Yeah.
just accessing it and kind of learning how to do some of that. So, which brings me to my next question. I feel like I don't know, in our society right now, I feel like there's this, what do I want to say? There's so many people that feel stuck. There's so many, like and
Mm.
maybe it's just Facebook ads targeting me. I don't know. And now that I'm talking about it, I'm going to be
The
even
algorithm does
more.
know what we're up to.
Exactly. But I see a lot of advertisements and programs and whatever and memes and everything about, people who just feel, but it's true. It's out there. So why do you think that so many people feel that they aren't, quote unquote, living their purpose?
I think that's a really good question. And I think, well, I think there's a couple things. Very, very big picture. Honestly, very big picture is that we live in a world where there are too many people who don't have their needs met, who are dealing with various kinds of oppression and bigotry and wealth inequality and food scarcity and all these different things. It's just really hard to be creative and think about things like, what am I here for, if you're worried about any of those things.
Yeah.
I think that's very real, and that just has to be said. We also live in an age where, like you said, I can be anywhere in the world right now. Like I can look up and find local news, in almost any spot in the world. And I'm aware of everything that's out there, or I could be, and I'm aware of, and not to mention the sort of influencer culture that we have on social media. So now you're constantly being bombarded with people's best lives, and so you're constantly sort of sitting there going, "Wait a minute, why am I not doing that?" But I don't actually think purpose means being a multi-million follower influencer, because it's not about that per se. The people that I work with who find purpose, some of them do go off and do those big things, and that's great. But what some people come to, and it's not easy to come to sometimes. I had someone in my last group who was like, what if I don't want to like change the world? Like, what if I just what if I just want to like do something, like have a nice life and be nice to my partner and take care of my friends and family. There's nothing wrong with that. People throw around the word purpose now, like if you connect with your purpose, you're going to go be the next, so and so. No, if you find your purpose, you're going to be you.
Yeah.
And who that is sometimes, like we said at the very beginning, sometimes it means letting go of some of these ideas that society is telling us that we have to have, or these influencers just telling, comparison is the thief of joy, so to speak. So once we can kind of let go, and it's a practice, all the things I'm talking about is not like, oh, you're going to listen to this podcast and go, oh, of course I can just let go of that. It is practice. It does take, repetition and consistency and work, but I've seen people go through this process, and it's really a beautiful thing that starts to happen when they start to just meet themselves.
Yeah, I like that. And I like that I like that individual in your group was like, well, what if I don't? I mean,
Yeah, totally.
that's probably, honestly, if we polled the world, I would guess that that's the majority that don't want to go out and just, not that they don't want the world to improve, but like they don't necessarily have these big grandiose dreams of making this big change. They just want to live a nice, good, happy, content life. And I think really when it comes down to it, that's what all of us want, is just to feel happy and content and at peace with ourselves. And that might mean that you're going out and doing big things, and it might mean that you're not. It just depends on, like you said, you the individual.
Yeah.
So you talked about not comparing, and I 100% agree with that. Do you have any other tips or questions? I always think that questions are like the most, I don't know, I always tell people you got to ask yourself why. It's like the most annoying thing, but like keep asking why and you'll eventually get to the answer. But what would be 3 questions that a person wanting to find their purpose should ask themselves? And again, recognizing that purpose could be big, could be small. We're just going for a happy life here.
Yeah, this is a hard one to answer, because there's I run workshops on this, and there's I think there's lots and lots of good ways of approaching it, but there's 2 that kind of come to mind. So if you don't mind me giving you 2 sets of questions.
Go for it.
I would say the first is really like designed to get you to a functional idea of purpose, and that is really looking back, kind of like I gave you my whole for everything that I do. Looking back, okay, so what do I do? Who do I do it for? And what is the impact? And with those 3 questions, you can almost put together a purpose statement. I do X for X so that this is how the world changed, or this is how my smaller world changes, or however big your world is. So that's kind of a formulaic approach. The one that I do, and this is, I think, really actually best done with a coach or somebody asking the questions. You can do it yourself as well if you know how to sort of journal in conversation with yourself. But it's 2 questions. And I've done, and it's so funny. I do this with some of my groups and some of my clients, where you literally just ask these questions until you're kind of fried. And the question is, what do you want? What about that is important to you? And it sounds very simple. But if you really, like I said, it's good to work with someone, because if you really just allow yourself the space to answer those questions, and sometimes there is like long pauses in these conversations, but somebody might say, I want to buy a house, and I want to not worry about money. Okay, why is that important to you? Well, safety and security. Okay, well, so then what do you want? Oh, well, if I have those things, then I would want And why is that important? And you start to get to these deeper levels of what it is that really matters to you. Because it's probably not, I mean, yes, we live in a capitalist society, so money's important, but that's probably not your purpose. You
Right.
know, that's a thing that like you should want and go get and good for you. But underneath that, uh, I haven't found an exception to this. So if anyone's listening and has an exception to this, please email me. I'd love to hear about it. But there's always something underneath that that's really driving somebody, something that they care about, whether it's, you know, safety or freedom or courage or like any of these kind of values that people have. So that's, I would say there's a formulaic 3 questions, and then there's like more of a do it with a friend or a coach, 2 questions over and over.
Yeah. Yeah. That 2 questions over and over is a really powerful exercise. I've done something similar before, slightly different questions, but
Mm,
again, another like twist on that, what I have done is where they just ask you the same question, like maybe it's what do you want
what do
for
you want? Yeah.
30 seconds or 60 seconds. What do you want? You respond, and they just keep asking, what do you want? What do you
Yeah.
want? What do you want? You might repeat yourself quite a bit, as you're trying to think of what you want beyond the first 3 or 4 things that you come up
Right.
with. And usually the first 3 or 4 things might be something kind of superficial. I want a snack, I want a nap, I want to whatever.
Right.
But then stuff comes out. Usually if you're with a trusted friend, or coach, and you're in a safe place to do so, you will be shocked at what can come up and the words that will come out of your own mouth, and you'll go, whoa, where did that even come from? But it'll be the truth. You'll recognize it immediately. But yeah, that's a really
It's funny
powerful.
you say that. Like that's, I think, it's one of the things I always ask people kind of, you know, at the end of our session or at the end of a group or something, I'll say, you know, what are you taking away from this, or what was valuable to you in this conversation? It's a way of getting people to really summarize and think for themselves, and
Yeah.
it's going to be easier for them to remember when they've kind of reviewed it. But the most common answer I get is that they were able to say things that they hadn't quite had the words for or said out loud before. And that sounds like, yeah, okay, well, I've got good friends, I can do that. But there's something qualitatively different about really intentionally going into a conversation like this, whether it is with a friend or a professional coach, but going in with the intention of discovering something deeper.
Yeah. Yeah, that it's very powerful for people that are like, I don't know about that. That sounds silly. Well, try it. And then let me know how that went.
Yeah, exactly.
So, do you have any other just must-do tips for people that are feeling just kind of stuck? Like they've asked themselves some questions, they're working on their purpose, but they just kind of feel stuck, like they're not in the right place in their life where they want to be, and they maybe even don't even know where they want to be. They just feel this stuck feeling. I know we've all, I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes you get like that, like for a day, and you're like, all right, well, I wasn't like this yesterday, I probably won't be like this tomorrow. But sometimes you're like that for like weeks at a time, and then it's
Yeah.
something bigger. So what are your tips there?
You know, I would say, I was thinking about this. There's a few things I would say that I think are helpful. Like if you're listening to this and you're feeling kind of stuck in your life, and we've all been there. I mean, I'm not doing what I do because I was never stuck. I'm not doing what I do because I'm never going to be stuck again. I mean, I could tell you about 5 areas of my life right now that I'm probably dealing with that feeling. But I think there's a few things that help. One, at the very highest level, is that change either comes for you or it comes with you. Change happens, change is inevitable, things are going to change. You can either let it happen to you or you can actually do things that kind of steer the direction that you're going to go. So what does that mean? I think the other tip that aligns with that is that you may actually have an idea of what you want your life to look like, and it's so different, or there's too many big things, and it's hard to like. It just seems impossible. The thing that I would say is think of one small change you could make, and this is how you take the wheel of the change machine, right? Think about one small thing that you can do that would be in that right direction. It's not about getting to a destination. It's about turning your compass, turning the car, whatever metaphor you want to use, in the right direction. Because as you go down that path, you're going to start to see more things. And the thing that you thought you wanted, you know, like there was lots of things that I thought I wanted in the art world, in the tech world, that as I went down that path, I started to see more and go, oh, you know what? Actually, I want to go in this other direction. That's okay. but you have to start moving. So I'll give you an example, right? Like, um, I exercise is kind of the easiest example, right? Like, if you have this idea, like you want to be healthier in whatever way, you want your body to look different in whatever way. Um, you can sit and think that it'll change tomorrow, but we all know that if you just sit and think, that's not going to necessarily change your body. There's some science that would maybe nuance that, but we'll save that for another podcast. But the mistake that I think people make is like, okay, I'm going to change. I'm going to be a fit person. I'm going to like totally eat differently, and I'm going to go to the gym 5 times. And we all know what happens on the second week of January when people do that kind of thing, right? So the advice that I would give, if you're ready to take the wheel on your change machine, and ready to point it in the right direction, think of a small thing. And when I say small, I mean something that you can do in less than 30 minutes. And that's really, really key, I think, when I work with people and I'm like, what's a small thing you can do? Well, they're like, well, I could set this up and I could set. I'm like, no, smaller, smaller, smaller. Well, I could find out which gyms around me have the classes that I like. Great, that's it. Just do that. Because then you have a small goal. You get that dopamine hit, and you might start to move along one of those things. If you tell me that you're going to work out for an hour a day for the next 2 weeks, I'm like, let's forget. That's like too much.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll do it, and maybe that's great, and that's fine. But I encourage people, especially if they're feeling stuck, is to just do that online research. Make that phone call to a friend. Ask them what they would do. Just do something that you can do in less than 30 minutes, and then last thing I'll say is if you can take that thing and make it repeatable, right? If you consistently show up for yourself and the kind of person you want to be, whether that's a healthier person, a nicer person, a better parent, a better boss, a better leader, a better executive, a better team member, a better whatever, you can find a small thing that you can repeat. And sometimes that's, maybe that's like this is what I did. I started working out for 20 minutes in the morning after I got all my stuff done, and that has translated into decades of consistency. Because the other thing is, if I totally get screwed up on my exercise or whatever, I can always go back to that less than 30-minute step and still feel like I did something. I'll leave that there. We could have a whole podcast.
We could do a
on that,
podcast just
I
on
feel like
that.
I've been rambling on now for a while about it.
No, that's great. And I love that you talk about just that one small step. I mean, I can't help but think of James Clear's book, Atomic Habits. If anybody's
Absolutely.
read that, like he's huge on like you talk about, well, I'm going to start going for a walk after dinner, which sounds like a small step, but he'll even break it down further and say, no, you're going to put your shoes on, your walking shoes on. And that's it.
I love that example.
Just your walking shoes.
Yeah.
And then once that's the habit, then you extend it. Yeah.
She said, my habit is not dancing for 5 hours a day. She said, my habit is putting on my shoes and calling the cab.
Yeah.
Well, now I have to go downstairs. Well, now I'm at the gym. It's like,
Yep.
but you put these things. James Clear is an absolutely huge influence on me, and had the good fortune of actually speaking with him about some of this stuff, and I can't say enough good things.
Yeah. I also like that, and you kind of hinted at this too. Sometimes when we're so stuck, I think like, well, I don't even know if this is the right thing. Like I could go off on this path and, maybe that's the right thing for me, but I don't even know if it is. But doing that just small step it's a commitment to do the small step, but it's not like you're drastically changing your life. If you're not sure if you should go this way or this way, well, you take that one small step. And then, like you say, things open up and you start to see what that path might look more like. And then you might stop and go, oh, nope. Because sometimes you have to take a wrong step to know that it's the wrong step. And then you can go, oh, just kidding, and go back and make a different choice.
I'm working with someone now who's having that exact experience. The small step that they're taking is doing some online research and speaking with some people in various programs that they were considering. And about a month into this is going, I don't know if I actually want to do it, which is great. You didn't waste a year and thousands of dollars in a program to discover you didn't like it. You did the small thing first.
Yep. Yeah.
I think there's always a step like that you can you can start to be in action and see, if it's for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I love that. So I do have one final question for you. This is my I guess it's becoming my signature question. It
Gotcha.
started off as the question of the month. I ask everybody this question. This is my favorite question. So what's one thing you wish everyone would do in regards to their own well-being?
Mm, create space. Yeah, it's something I see in my own life, in my family. My wife works very, very hard. She loves, she's very, very dedicated to her mission in life, her purpose in life. My clients, the other artists that I know, the people, the entrepreneurs that I know, the thing that is so often in the way is just this lack of space. And I mean that both physically and sort of mentally, emotionally, and also just temporally. Like, I was working with someone who, um, very short version of the story is they kind of gave me their calendar, and they were like, I have to create all of this work for this thing in a couple of months, but there's literally no space. So that's what we worked on. And we did. We managed to create space, and he had a great show. And it may look impossible, but and I would also say, I mean, if you're having trouble doing that in your life, there's lots of resources out there. I'd be remiss if I didn't say I have a few. Obviously, my newsletter and my Substack, and working with me. This is something that I do a lot with clients, because a lot of times, think about it this way, right? Like your identity, your life is like a puzzle. You're a puzzle piece in this puzzle where you've got and it's like a whatever shape it is, and you've got your relationships and your kids and your work and your other projects and your social life, and all of the things in your life fit. So now you want to change something. Well, great, but that means your puzzle piece changes. So now what happens? There's pressure, because there's these other pieces that were like, I was kind of used to you like this, and they'll either push you back into the shape that you were, or you can do the work, have those conversations, and start to find a way to either have them make space for you, or obviously in the worst case, sometimes, friendships and jobs and other things are no longer a fit if the change is big enough. But you've got to create that space so that you can change your shape. I can give you a lot of examples, but that's it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like that. Nobody has ever said that for an answer before. So good job. You're the first one. No, I like that. And it's so true. I mean, whatever, when we're looking to make a change, that's one of the hardest things is, we'll go back to working out. Let's say you're going to, start working out however many times a week, but you haven't been doing that. Well, when are you going to do it? And if you didn't stop and take the time to figure out the when and to make that space, then you're going to find that after a couple of weeks, that's one reason of many why people kind of fall off the wagon, so to speak, because they didn't take the time to make the space, and then it doesn't work out. And we
Yeah.
could say that with 1,000 different
Oh,
examples.
it's true with relationships. It's true with work. I mean, if you are relationships is another easy one. Like, if your life is sort of full, but you're looking for that life partner or better friendships or whatever, but you're spending all of your time with you know people who sort of are no longer a fit for you, or maybe don't meet the needs that you have now, because we're all changing. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm almost 48 years old, and hopefully, I think, very, very different from 38 and 28. My needs are different. What I enjoy is different. What brings me joy is different, and my friendships have changed over time to match that. That's a very easy one to think about. But if I was, if I was still doing all of the things with all of the people that I was doing exactly, I'm still friends with a lot of those people, by the way, which is I'm proud of. We have to make space in our lives for the things that we enjoy, and so that again, it'll just keep coming back to this idea, so that we can continue to meet ourselves in new ways, because we are constantly changing, and so I think it is a constant practice, and it's a worthwhile practice. Any app you have, right? Like to learn a language, to learn guitar, to meditate, every single one of them says, 5 minutes a day, you'll see the progress. So if you're feeling stuck, or if you want to start to think about, okay, what would even change look like? Find a thing that you can do for 5 minutes a day that would give you a little bit of space to just let these ideas come, let that right brain kick in a little bit, and start to put ideas together.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that. And then I love the shout out to the right brain. That's where
Oh
I
yeah,
live, is
we
in my
can. Oh, let's do 4 more hours on the right brain. Yeah.
I told you this brain course that I've been taking has been fascinating.
I'm
And
curious. Maybe after you can send me a link to that. I'm really curious about it.
yeah, it's been pretty interesting stuff. So, well, Mark, this has been an interesting conversation, and I know you have so much more to share, but within the confines of this podcast, we probably should wrap it up. But if people are also thinking, "Wow, this guy's got lots of great info. How can I learn more from him?" Where should they go?
I'm pretty easy to find. Marc Scheff Coaching is my website. The spell. I'm assuming you'll put up a link. It's Mark with a C, and you can spell my last name.
Yep.
I'm on LinkedIn under Marc Scheff. If you are a creative, I work with folks around creativity, but if you are someone who is doing creative work, drawing, painting, music, writing, I do run a course and a membership program that is a group of people who are really doing all of this work that I've been talking about. They're doing this inner work, and all of them are it's actually called the Unleashed Creativity Club, and all of them are working to kind of unleash that creative force within themselves, whether that's as a professional career, or even like we have people in there who are, this is not what they're going to be doing for a living, but they feel a calling to do it. So those are the places to find me.
Awesome. Love that. And yes, you're right. I will put the link in the show notes so people can just click away and find you super easy. And Mark, thanks again so much for being on the show today.
It was such a pleasure. This was a great conversation, and we'll email a little bit about the right brain stuff because I want to know what your recommendations are there. Thank you again.
And everybody else that's listening, I hope that you gained a little something from Mark in this podcast. And wherever you're at, I hope you're having a fantastic day. I will catch you on the next one.